Hi, I'm Christina Applegate.
And I'm Jamie-Lynn Sigler.
And this is
Messy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Messy. This is Jamie. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I met our guest, Tamsen Fadal, when I was a guest on her podcast, The Tamsen Show. She's a journalist, so of course she was a wonderful interviewer, but she is just such a champion of women and every stage of life that we are going through. She has developed an intimate relationship with her audience for decades now and has really just taken them along with her curiosity of everything she's been through in life. So if you want to know more about Tamsen, she's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a New York Times bestselling author, a documentary producer, and the host, like I said, of The Tamsen Show. And after a 30-year career in television news, she became one of the leading voices on menopause and midlife health, helping millions of women navigate perimenopause, menopause, and those messy years with confidence. So please welcome to Messy, Tamsen Fadal. Welcome to Messy, Tamsen. I'm so grateful that you've come on the show. You know, ever since we had our interview, I was just so excited to continue a conversation with you. You're so wonderful at your job, truly. Like when you had me as a guest, I thought about our conversation a lot. You're so open and honest and curious in all of the best ways. And you just brought out insights in me. And I was talking about my book for weeks and weeks that I hadn't even thought about before. So I'm so looking forward to having this conversation with you. And for any of our audience that doesn't know you, that can be introduced, because you're such a champion of women and really letting us, you know, live alongside you and along with your curiosity and impeccable research that's so incredibly helpful, especially for me, as we'll get into. Like, I'm entering into this stage of perimenopause and I'm incredibly overwhelmed. And so many of our listeners write in about perimenopause and menopause because when you live with a chronic illness, you're sort of left with these questions like, is it one or the other? Is it both? Is one exacerbating the other? So we'll get into all of this. But before we start, one of the things that we love to ask each guest at the beginning is, who was little Tamsen? Tell us about who that little girl was. What did her shoes look like? What was her favorite music and TV shows? What was she like?
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I thought about our conversation for a long time after we had it, too, because you were so raw and open and just so many people responded to your interview. So it was wonderful to have you on. It really, really was. And just sit alongside you.
Thank you.
So little Tamsen wore white patent leather shoes. And I don't know why I remember that, but I remember tights and patent leather shoes and always dresses. And I had a full head of hair. At a very young age, I came out with hair. And I think I was listening to, I don't know what I listened to when I was very young, but I remember one of the early songs that I would dance around to all the time was I Will Survive. Now, I don't know how old I was at that point or what year that came out, so somebody needs to look, but I'm a Gen X girl. So I just remember that. I didn't know what the words meant. I knew nothing about it, but I thought it was like really a powerful, fun song. So little Tamsen was a talkative and constantly asking questions and getting in trouble in school for talking all the time. That's who I was.
So naturally just curious.
Naturally, nothing has changed.
Yeah,
very curious.
Exactly. So when did you decide you wanted to become a journalist? When did you even realize that was something that you could be when you were older?
Yeah, it's funny. I never knew it was. I was the person putting on plays in the garage, charging my parents to come see them, and just knew that like I thought performing was always a lot of fun. And then I think when I got into college, I started working for the newspaper in my university. And I loved interviewing people. I loved it. And I couldn't get enough of it. And at that time, we were interviewing on tape recorders. And then eventually I said, oh, there's this TV component of it. And you can actually tell stories with television. So I went into radio first. And then I went into TV. And I was mesmerized by newsrooms and breaking news and running out and finding, what had happened and then putting it into words that people could understand in a very short amount of time. So that was always what I loved. And I just think I loved having somebody's story at the end of the day to go home with and seeing how that changed my life and what I thought about things.
And so is there like a natural trajectory or road that people go on, to go to where you went to as a journalist, like to pay your dues? Like what, I know you say you started in the college paper, but like, what is that road like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Usually you start in a smaller market. And so I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I was like, I want to get to New York. That's all I cared about. But I started in Oak Hill, West Virginia, which is a television market, like 205, and maybe there's 211 television markets in the country.
Wow.
And so I started in a very small city, and everybody knew, the new girl that moved in. I lived on Main Street, and you start paying your dues by doing everything. You film yourself, which is kind of what things are like today, which is interesting to how things have come full circle where we're filming ourselves again. But you have a camera and you tell your own story and you edit your story and you put it on television. So you're the reporter, you're the anchor, you're the editor, you're the producer.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was where I started. And then I eventually worked my way up into different markets, and I got to New York eventually. And during the way, I had some interesting journeys. I went to Afghanistan and covered the war in Afghanistan. Chased hurricanes across the country.
Did that excite you? Did it scare you? Both?
It scared my father quite a bit when he heard I was going to Afghanistan. And being embedded with troops and living in a tent and not having any communication and just a satellite phone. And I think it always excited me. Like I never felt fear. I said to somebody recently, I'm 5'3", and I've always been fearless about a situation I probably shouldn't be in necessarily, but I felt like it was all going to be okay. But at the end of the day, it was always the same. It was the stories of the people that were there. So whether it was the residents or whether it was the community or whether it was our troops that were fighting, it was always looking for the story.
Yeah, it was always about other people and your service that you could that give. Yeah.
And what they did, like these unspoken stories that were like hidden stories of people that maybe were not the famous people, but were the ones that were making these huge differences that we just didn't know about. So I was always kind of like trying to uncover those wherever I could go.
Yeah. Well, I guess hearing you all say that feels like it must have then been such a natural progression for you after spending decades telling other people's stories to start sharing your own and understanding that other people would share your own. So you initially started sharing more of your personal life with your first husband, Matt, covering things about relationships. So what sparked you feeling like I'm going to start sharing more about my life?
It's interesting. My first relationship, we started this business. We started a dating and a matchmaking business in New York City. And we did it because I had spent some time here, and I found this statistic, and it was there are 200 more single women than men living in New York City. And it blew my mind because I got married later in life. I dated for a very long time. I didn't get married the first time until I was 34 years old. And so I was blown away by that number. Like I thought that was unbelievable that there were so many more single women. This is a time of, Sex in the City, and there's, you want to move to New York and be Carrie Bradshaw. But the truth was, is there were a lot of people moving here really unhappy and trying to date and understand the landscape. So that fascinated me in terms of, wow, like where's somebody helping these women? And this is a little before online dating really happened. So that's how that business started. And, so it was always very fascinating of, trying to figure that out. And I was telling my story because at the time I had found a relationship that I thought was, my relationship for life. It turns out it wasn't. But I thought it was. And
which
so
happens.
I shared that. Which
but
happens.
But listen, it was a relationship. It didn't, it wasn't, that's not a failure.
No, it grew me in so many ways.
Yes.
So many ways. And no, and that's always something I think, like when we have a relationship that didn't work, and now we're wherever we are now, I don't look at any of that time as wasted time. I think that I learned so much, and I try to impart any of those little lessons, because I do a lot like advice to my younger self. There's just things that I think about throughout the day that I wish someone had said to me out loud that would have made something kind of go off in my mind.
Do you feel, though, that sometimes, because I can even feel this way with my kids, but even when I think, especially when I was writing my book, right, looking back to my younger self, and we can, we have to have the compassion and forgiveness for ourselves, but, wishing that we knew better. But sometimes it's like you can't know better until you experience it. And it's the going through it is just what you have to do. It's like sometimes that advice will just fall on deaf ears because you have to go through it.
You have to. And honestly, had anybody said to me, don't marry him, don't do this, go the other direction, they might have said that and I wouldn't have listened. So yeah, there's no question that those experiences, and I hesitate to use the word wise because we've equated that with women that are older, but I am older. And I do think that really did shape who I am today and who I am in relationships with my friends, with my husband now, with, how I look at my day to day, like how I looked at it at 20, everything was like life or death. And today, everything is what I'm getting out of this day with the people that I want to be around. Because I really do think of that now. And I don't know about you, but I didn't think about that for years.
Of course.
And years of my life. I was like, I got to run and gun and keep going and, be faster and better than everybody. And I don't think like that anymore. And it's such a nice relief.
Yes, I know. And also just to feel, and what you've been such a wonderful example for so many women is just to live out loud honestly and accept the changes that come with age. But it's almost like, not to jump too far ahead, but it's like the second you do, I'm curious if you feel this way, that you almost feel more youthful at this time in your life because of that perspective and just what you've been through, right?
That is really a good point, because I do feel freer.
You see,
I just I feel freer. I even go back and look at old pictures sometimes. I mean, we did have bad hairdos back then, but I go back and look and I was like, tense, stressed out, trying to be older than I was, but yeah, I think that, and I'm noticing it a lot too. I don't know if you are too, but I'm noticing a lot of women that are like, yeah, you're a prime example. I'm done with hiding that. Like, those secrets are there. I'm done with that. Those have to go. And I really do feel there's something physically and mentally that happens to us when you're like, I'm done with that. And I'm telling the truth. It's my truth and it's the truth. And I think there's really something to that. And I think that seeing women that are role models do that allows somebody else to do it. Like, I have no question that I'm watching it kind of, even with, all these different books your book and different books that have come out, whether they're about relationships or, something that's happened in the past, I'm seeing that more and more. And I'm excited about seeing that turn, because I don't think we've done that nearly enough as women.
Yes. And it's, it's something to look forward to with aging, right? It's like all these things that we're about to get into of just the hard parts of it, but it's something to look forward to as you get older, especially for women. So I think that that's really exciting that we're all feeling comfortable and excited to talk about this type of stuff.
Because I never was. I was so petrified of aging. We both are in an industry where you don't, or you're not supposed to want to age at one point. And I remember a coworker saying to me, when you're, going around 35, 40, you're not going to be in front of the camera anymore. So you need to think about that next career. Yeah. She was about 10 years older than me. And I said, what? And she goes, just remember that a younger woman is usually always sitting next to an older news person. Like, think about whatever city that you were in. If you were in Los Angeles for a long time, you think about television. That was an older male anchor and a younger woman. And the woman would like kind of be replaced all the time. And then the guy would kind of be sitting there as the wise older man.
That's
and
right.
The times have changed now, right? We have incredible women, filling up the news shows now, but it wasn't always like that.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Today's episode is sponsored by Jones Road Beauty. We love to talk about it. We love to talk about how we hate the heavy caked on makeup look. I don't like a lot of steps. I don't like a ton of products. I just want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to enhance my natural features, and I want it to be under 5 minutes. Well, thankfully, I have Jones Road Beauty Miracle Balm to do all of that. This is the ultimate no fuss multitasker. I use this thing as a highlighter, as a bronzer, as a blush, for my cheeks, a lip tint. I'm able to get effortless, glowy looks in under 60 seconds. Can you with any of your other products? No. And in summer, you don't want to spend time in a full routine. You want to just look together fast. I love how simple it is, how clean it is, because it is packed with skin-loving ingredients. It's nourishing my skin, not clogging my pores, has none of the bad stuff. Modern-day makeup that's clean, strategic, and multifunctional for effortless routines. For a limited time, our listeners are getting a free full-sized mascara on their first purchase when they use code MESS at checkout. Just head to jonesroadbeauty.com and use code MESS at checkout. And after you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Today's episode is sponsored by Veracity. Veracity has a story that's really resonated with me lately because I don't know if you guys know this, but I am overly skeptical of any product, especially ones that are promising energy and focus on craving control, because usually it just tastes terrible, comes with some giant warning label, or it actually doesn't work. But recently I tried Veracity's Metabolism Ignite, and you guys, I understand the hype, okay? Veracity and their most popular product, the Metabolism Ignite, gives you an all-natural way to reduce cravings, to get energized, and to sharpen your focus. Metabolism Ignite has sold out 10 times for a reason, okay? There's no side effects. There's no allergens. With Veracity's drug-free, clinically proven, and doctor-formulated solutions, you can support your body's need to live your healthiest life. We're treating underlying root causes, by the way, okay? We're taking our health back into our hands. So what's in it, you're asking? It's a unique blend of lemon verbena and hibiscus extracts, green coffee bean extract, and magnesium. Plus, even if you're on a GLP-1 or you're a new mom or you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding, Veracity is safe to take along with all of those things. In fact, it'll help your GLP-1 aid in boosting your metabolism and appetite control. Veracity was born so that people have access to holistic solutions and optimal health, things they deserve. Veracity was literally named Veracity because if you don't know, the word veracity is a synonym for accuracy. So unlike other companies that overpromise and underdeliver, Veracity always aims to deliver on its promises. So learn from Allie, their founder, and make the switch to Veracity. Head to veracityhealth.co and use code MESSY for up to 65% off your order. Once again, that's VRACITY health.co for up to 65% off, and make sure you use promo code MESSY. They'll know we sent you. So with knowing all of this just must then have been so terrifying for you when you started having perimenopause and menopause symptoms on air, right? Would you mind telling our listeners about what that was like for you and what you went through?
Yeah. I was 47 at the time. And leading up to this, I didn't know the word perimenopause at all. So I didn't know what these symptoms were, but I knew that I was gaining weight. I was feeling tired all the time. I was working out. Like I kept getting up a half hour earlier every day to get to the gym because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm putting on weight. I'm trying to be perfect. I'm eating my shake in the morning, salad at lunch. I'm trying to be perfect. So I'm gaining weight. I'm not sleeping. And I was having really bad brain fog, which I didn't have a word for then. I just knew that my memory wasn't what it used to be, and that I would get on, I would not be able to ad lib or just talk off the cuff or if there would be a story going on, I'd like, oh my gosh, can we please get to a commercial break? And I would find myself in a complete sweat of anxiety of like, I just want to get past this part. And I had been on the air for a long time, decades. And so I knew that I wasn't nervous about that. but I was nervous about my performance, and it just continued to get more uncomfortable. And then one night I was doing the news, and we were in a commercial break, and I had what now I realize was this absolutely intense hot flash, heart palpitations, and I thought I was going to fall off the stool that we were on. And I got off the set, went to the bathroom, and just went down to the floor. And I was like, what is happening to me? And the two male producers that I had to come in, and they're like, are you okay? It was the only time, literally in like 25 years, I'd never not finished a newscast. And I went home and then started my doctor to doctor search to see what was going on, and found out, what was happening.
Yeah. So was that a difficult search for you? Because I know, so you wrote an incredible book, How to Menopause. And in that you said that 75% of women who seek medical care for their menopausal symptoms are left untreated. And at least 29% of all women age 18 to 64 report feeling dismissed by doctors. So what was that journey like with you, with your doctors? Did they immediately say, this is what you were going through? Or were you left with a lot of questions for a while?
Well, it's interesting. I had gone to doctors before this happened. Okay. And I wound up going back in my notes. I'm like, I've had this for a while. When I finally went to the doctor, and I went to a couple of different ones, I finally got blood work done. I was treated with Lexapro for antidepressants, because they were like, maybe you're anxious and maybe you're feeling depressed. Maybe that's why you're not sleeping. And so that's where they started the process, which is what happens to a lot of women. I later found out. But I eventually got a note in my patient portal that said, in menopause, any questions? So I was in menopause all the time leading up to that, when I went to all these different doctors, where I'd gone to a therapist, I'd gone to a GP, I'd gone to my OBGYN. I even had polyps removed during this time. Like, they were down there in that area of my body. Like, they weren't missing anything down there. That was all perimenopause. I had no idea. So all of these I was treating differently, or symptoms going with different places and treating them differently. Maybe this is anxiety. Maybe it's, I found one note that said patient is complaining of weight gain and moodiness. Perimenopause. Like, if had anybody said, like, you're 45 years old and you're moody, you are, gaining weight, not sleeping, and, not able to remember things. Those are clear symptoms of perimenopause, at right smack dab in the middle of it. And one by one, I kept hearing this same story from women once I started speaking out. So that number that you just read, 75% of women who look for care are left untreated, stopped me cold, because it was mind-boggling.
Did the word perimenopause even exist before 2 years ago?
Isn't that funny? I know. Had you ever heard it?
Never.
I know. The first time perimenopause came about, I think it was 1980. It was in the New York Times. That was the first time, 1980. But nobody talked about it, because doctors weren't trained when it came to menopause, especially after this big study that kind of stopped everything back in 2001. And so they weren't trained in medical school. They didn't really talk about it. If they did training, they had to do it on their own. And doctors that were outside of the OBGYN territory essentially were like, oh yeah, we don't deal with bikini medicine, so that's not our area that we're dealing with. So perimenopause wasn't, maybe in medical circles, but that was not a conversation that anybody was having, because I hadn't heard it either. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I started talking about it.
No, and and you talking about menopause, many people weren't talking about it then. So what led you to do that first TikTok that you put out there about what you were going through, and then what was the response?
Yeah. Well, I did it on TikTok, first of all, because I was like, I know less people here, but if other people are going through it, I can't believe all these symptoms are this, and I'm going through it. And the reason I did it on TikTok is, again, the fear of, wow, everybody I know in TV, all my bosses, my coworkers are all on Instagram. So I'm not necessarily sure if I want to announce it to everybody. So I'll start with TikTok. So that reaction was unbelievable. And it really was, I wasn't dancing, I wasn't singing, I wasn't being creative. I was reading the 34 symptoms that had just been released of symptoms of menopause at the time, which are really menopause symptoms. Yeah. And the reaction was unbelievable. Like, it actually made me a little bit nervous, because I thought, oh my gosh, like I don't know, I have so many people paying attention to this, but so many people saying the exact same thing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going through it. I'm 43, I'm 42, I'm 45, I'm 55. I didn't know this. So the array of numbers was like from 30s into 60s and beyond. And just the reason I did it, I guess, because I was so shocked by what I found and so angry that I'd never heard any of that before with doctors I had talked to forever. And that I was so dismissed the first time. Like, in menopause, any questions? Like, let me know. That's what was put in my patient portal. And nobody talked to me about hormone therapy or supplements or lifestyle changes or anything at that time.
So then that's so shocking. It's like women just kind of get written off once they're
all
in there.
the time. Especially in midlife, I think, like, once they're past, the reproductive years, it's like, we don't really know what to do with you.
Yeah.
There's not that much. So, good luck with everything. So hopefully that's changing in a big way.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think it seems to be, thanks to people like you. So what was your first step in getting help and easing your symptoms and your life with everything that was going on?
Yeah, my road was a little bit rickety because there was not all this conversation at the time going on. And so I switched doctors because the doctor that I was going to after I got that response and I started doing my own research. I was like, oh my gosh, there's like this whole other area and there's going to be 1 billion women. This was a number that I came across at the time years ago. 1 billion women are going to be in menopause by the year 2025. And this was around 2020, now 2021. I said, all these people, and what are we supposed to do? So I found a doctor that specialized in menopause, and I went and saw her. And she said, you should really talk about hormone therapy. Think about hormone therapy. And I said, I can't do it because I lost my mom to breast cancer. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 44, and she died at 51. And I knew somewhere in the back of my mind that estrogen equated to breast cancer. And I didn't know what that correlation was or where I heard it or why I thought that, but I knew that I can't do estrogen. My mom had an estrogen positive breast cancer, a very aggressive form. It metastasized. She was very young. She was very young. I was high risk. So I said, I can't do that. And she said, well, you need to read a little bit more about it, but you actually can because you didn't have breast cancer. It's a family history of breast cancer. So you need to understand a little bit more about it. And she sat down and explained it. She prescribed it. I went home with progesterone and I went home with patches, and I never did them for like a year plus because I was so petrified. I'd take them out and I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. Even now knowing the information. So I did supplements and lifestyle changes and took magnesium and took maca root and anything that I could do to subside. But my hot flashes and my brain fog were really, really bad. And
how long did that last, those types of symptoms?
Well, I'd had them for a long time, remember, leading up to it. And then this was still going on when I was in menopause, like hardcore. And I had met my now husband, gotten married, had low libido, like all these things were happening at the same time. So I finally went back to her and I said, I think I do want to do it. I just want to understand it a little. Like, please tell me one more time it's going to be okay. And I was doing a lot of research at that point because I thought, like, why don't we know more? I'm talking to everybody about it, getting stories. And so I wound up going on hormone therapy and it changed everything for me. The hot flashes stopped. I had to increase it a couple of times because it's not a one and done. I took progesterone. I was sleeping like a baby, which I had not done for years. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I think because I was sleeping, because estrogen and progesterone are not necessarily supposed to be to treat brain fog, but I think everything just really helped and made me feel very different. And eventually added on vaginal estrogen, which is really important to women, for women, and testosterone.
So for somebody like me, okay, I'm 44. I feel like, I'm sorry, I'm 45. I just turned 45.
It's okay. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm starting to notice changes. Yeah. I started estradiol vaginal cream because I was getting UTIs almost every time I had sex, it felt like. So I understood that that was just kind of part of like the lining, thinning, whatever it may be. I was getting shoulder issues, which I had no idea. I had a girlfriend of mine who's 51 who was getting treated for frozen shoulder for 3 years, and no one said anything to her about the fact that it could have something to do with perimenopause or menopause. Nobody.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Like, women go around with like itchy ears and frozen shoulder and like joint pain, and no one says anything. No one. And that's so wrong. And
It's
that's
so
what really
wrong.
made me speak out.
And I'm having a ton of hair thinning. Like when I shower, I have clumps of it in my hair when I wash my hair. So I'm sitting here with this kind of list, right? Also low libido, not quite feeling myself. And it really took me venting to my girlfriends and us kind of all tracking to each other that, A, we're all feeling the same thing. We didn't turn into raging bitches. We're not out of love with our husbands. We're not unhealthy. So like something is going on right now. And we have this list of things. So you find somebody in my position, you found a like menopause specific doctor. Is that what we need to do? Like, how does somebody like me advocate for myself to get the proper care and support that I need in this time, knowing thankfully, because of people like you, what's actually going on in my body right now?
Well, I want to say first, I'm so grateful that you have girlfriends to talk to about it, because I think for a long time we didn't even do that because we were so ashamed of these like older changes or whatever we want to call it, especially when we feel very young and we're in our 40s. We're like, this can't be what's happening. But unfortunately, the onus is still on the woman. On every woman out there to be able to advocate for themselves or or tell somebody or talk to somebody or share what they've learned, because that's the only way I can see us getting this message out there. I have been shouting. We've done 2 documentaries, books, constantly talking about it. And still we had 40% of women back in 2002 doing hormone therapy. We are just creeping up to 5%. Only 5% of women that are even on hormone therapy or, even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that's with all this conversation going on. So there are menopause certified doctors that are certified by the Menopause Society at menopause.org, where you can find a list according to your zip code. So you can put your zip code in and say, I'm looking for somebody in my area because I want to see somebody in person. The good news is, and something that has really changed really changed the game since 2020 is telehealth. So, I'm a big supporter of MIDI Health. They've done an incredible job of training nurse practitioners to really understand this stage in life. So when you get on there, you're not dealing with somebody that's like, I don't know, you got joint pain and you got weight gain and you're not feeling like yourself and low libido. Maybe it's your anxiety. You meditate,
Right.
So you've got somebody that's saying like, hey, if you're this age and you've got these symptoms, most likely, because this is how perimenopause is treated, most likely you're in perimenopause. So what can we do for you? You're getting UTIs, vaginal estrogen. You're getting hot flashes. Maybe we do hormone therapy, or if you are not a candidate for hormone therapy, there are non-hormonal options that we can do now. Prescriptions. Can't do those. Maybe we can provide some kind of supplements. So there's a couple of different ways to be able to do that. And then the third way is if you've got a doctor that you're like, listen, Tamsen, I don't want to switch doctors. I love my doctor, but they've never talked to me about it. You might have to do the job of going in there and educating your doctor and literally bringing in a list of your symptoms and maybe an article, a podcast, this podcast, something that says, you need to listen to this because I think I'm in perimenopause and I want to talk about my options. And that is how it's almost so old fashioned, but it's actually how we have to do this right now. And I'll tell you, there are some incredible doctors that are willing to listen. I've talked to several of my girlfriends that have said, oh my gosh, I've gone into my doctor, and they're like, yes, tell me more. And so I'm really feeling good about that right now as we share this message. But you've got to advocate for yourself, because nobody else is going to be able to go in there and communicate with that doctor for you.
Yeah. What have you found or have heard is the best hormone test? So I've done the blood test and things like that, but then I've been told by some people that some of them aren't completely accurate. So the last thing that I did to read my hormones was the Dutch test. Mm-hmm. It's like where you pee in a stick every 30 days. What do you know of, because you've talked to so many people, what is the best route, if there is one, for testing your hormones?
Yeah, but here's what happens in perimenopause. Your hormones are kind of chaotic. So they're all over the place. So one point in your, in that cycle, because you're still getting your period, as chaotic as it might be, it could be once a month. It could be 3 weeks a month. Like I remember, and this is another thing. I remember one January, I literally bled like 2 full weeks and then the 4th week of January. And I'm like, how is this happening to me? Like how, and I mean like crime scene, like really bad, heavy, awful, getting off of the news desk, putting my tampon, like carrying tampons back and forth to the bathroom. It sucked. And nobody ever said it was perimenopause. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on with me. And they said, it's stress. You're stressed. That's why you get your period so heavy. I went, what?
You're like, I've been stressed my whole freaking life. This is not why.
So you want me to meditate in order to not get a heavy period? Is that what you're saying to me? But when it comes to the hormone test, there's really not one test that's going to be so amazing that's going to say, Jamie, you're in perimenopause now. So here you go. It's really going to be symptoms are going to really define that. And so, with all the things that you've told me already or told the doctor, I am sure your doctor's like, this is your age. This is where you are. This is, your cycle is going to be a good indicator of that, how your periods are, how heavy out they are, how maybe you're not getting your period, but every 6 weeks now, so you start to see the difference in that cycle, which starts to say, okay, I'm creeping closer toward the end of perimenopause and closer to menopause, which would be 12 months without a period.
Got it. Yeah.
Support for Messy comes from Rhythm Health. I just did my annual physical, and when it came to blood work, listen, it was the same old drill. I had to drive to the lab, the waiting room, the needle, all of that for one report that goes into a file. I realized I just need a more consistent picture of my health, and that's why I'm so excited about our partner, Rhythm. So Rhythm is the world's easiest blood test. It's going to help you learn what's happening inside your body. It takes 2 minutes to take it home. There's no needles. It's just this sleek and painless collection device. You peel it, you stick it on your arm, you draw a small sample, you mail it to your lab, and you get results back in around 3 days. Listen, with old school testing, we're getting these snapshots of our health, but with Rhythm, you can do this test every few weeks, every few months, and get a real picture on what's going on. 30 biomarkers spanning cholesterol, inflammation, hormones, and metabolic health. Rhythm, by the way, also is only $79 per month, a fraction of traditional lab testing, and it ships right to your door, and you can cancel anytime. Right now, Rhythm is offering our listeners 15% off your first month and free shipping at rhythm.health/messy. That's Rhythm with one H, RYTHM.health/messy for 15% off your first month and free shipping. Stop guessing, start testing, rhythm.health/messy.
So when I did my hormone testing, and because of the chronic UTIs, and thankfully I have this incredible female doctor in Austin. Her name is Brooke Stubbs, and she's her entire practice basically is women of my age, in our age, in her age, and she's all about hormone therapy. So the second I saw her and told her these symptoms, she had me on the estradiol. I do testosterone as well, which have you tried? Because I wonder if that's contributing to my hair loss, but at the same time, do I need to muscle through it and get to the other side of it? Because I know the great benefits of it, and it's definitely made me want to have sex with my husband again.
Yeah, I know, right? It works. It actually works. That one is actually, you can really see pretty quickly. So I do testosterone. I think it's, hair loss would happen with testosterone. And this is according to experts. Again, I'm a journalist, not a doctor,
yes,
but I interviewed 50 plus doctors for the book and the doc. And, over and over, it is if your testosterone levels are too high, and if you are dealing with a doctor that is so educated in this, I have to assume that you're getting your blood tested. So she's keeping a close eye on that, and so I can't imagine that's what would be causing that. It's this time in life. It is what happens during this time. Is it thinning hair, breaking hair? That was the other thing I was having. My hair was breaking off. That's why I cut it. I used to have really long hair. It was breaking off, and I was told when I went to a hair specialist for that, in thinning, my hair was thinning. They said, it is probably stress from your divorce that's going on. And, if when that subsides a little bit, you'll start seeing, and I went, stress from, I was the cause of everything, essentially, Jamie.
Do you think they say this to men when
no.
they have symptoms? I'm
Of
not
course
really
not.
that girl to be like,
I know.
but
I
it's
know.
true. Like I can't imagine a man walking into a doctor's office and having this
How?
list of terrible things he's going through and them being like, you might be stressed.
They have like 27 pills for ED. No, of course they're not saying that. They're saying, let me write your prescription as quickly as I can, get it filled, and everything's going to be great. Or here's some minoxidil for your hair loss. Not your
Right.
fault, man. It always it happens to all of us. No way. They don't do this. It's really, it is why, going back to what we were saying at the beginning, I feel like women are speaking out now and really telling their truth. And it is the only way. And because we didn't do it for such a long time, even though I always thought I was kind of this cutting edge woman, like, yes, I speak out and I'm independent, but I had no idea what was really happening and what I wasn't talking about at the end of the day. I wasn't talking about my age. I was never talking about my periods. I was never talking about, my God, menopause. I thought that was going to happen when I die. I never thought that was going to happen at, 47 years old. So no, I don't think that's what happens to men. And I do think that, and I don't ever want to be like that either, but I do see a drastic difference. I mean, women were only mandated to be part of medical studies in the mid 90s. So, the medical system was built for men, not for women. So women were not mandated to be part of these studies. Like, most of the things that are happening in the medical system are geared toward men, not us. And then we have this whole area that has nothing to do with men. It's been grossly overlooked, just grossly overlooked. And, as a journalist, I was never an advocate or anything. I was very like down the middle, like just the facts. And when this happened, I say when menopause happened to me is what really gave me my voice in so many ways. And it's like, it happened for me, not really to me. Like, it happened for me to be able to feel like I could speak out.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It sort of gave you this next sort of chapter and your voice. So let me ask you, for your particular situation, and then let's say for a woman that is in this stage of life, that is feeling like these things are interfering with her ability to work and perform the way she's used to and knows that she can. How did you advocate for yourself in a place of work? Because that has to be incredibly scary and difficult.
It is. And I thank you for asking that, because I think I'm on both sides of it now. So I was working in a big media corporation, 200 television stations across the country, big networks. And when I went in, because I realized what was happening, and there was nothing they could do about what happened to me, right? But I quickly did some research about what was happening in the UK, and the United Kingdom was way ahead of us. And in particular, this one television station there, Channel 4 in the UK, and there was a woman that was in charge there, and they had implemented a menopause workplace policy. And I went, what's a workplace policy about menopause? And they had like a cooling room set up for women. Women could step out and, deal with their symptoms. And I think they even had time off. They had all these things happening. And this was so ahead of its time, I think, in so many ways when I look back at it now. And I remember printing out their policy, and I went, I don't know what we need, but maybe we don't need paid time off for it, but maybe we do need something in our policy, in our healthcare policy, that says, hey, this is also part of that, where you go see somebody during this time in life. Maybe we get access to telehealth. Maybe we make sure that our hormones are covered, whatever insurance might not be doing for women, which is, I wasn't sure at the time. And so when I went into the HR department, and nothing against the company or anything, they were so, like all of us, had no clue. Yeah. And I remember the HR person, and she was great. She was in her like early 40s. So she goes, well, I'm not there yet, but explain to me what this is. And I said, well, perimenopause is 10 years leading up to the day you're not going to get, 4 to 10 years leading up to the day you're not going to get your period. And these are all the things that happened. And all these things could affect women at work. And we think women are being moody, or they're sweating a lot, or they're not on their game, and they're not bringing their A game. And in reality, here's what's happening. They might not know it. So could we have educational seminars, or could we make sure that they're getting access in their healthcare? And they went months and months and months and months until I finally wound up leaving, not because of that, but time had come where I was ready to go, where no policy had ever been implemented, because they didn't know what to do. And either they didn't know what to do, or they thought like the policy covered enough stuff for women. But here's what I will say. and now on the other side of it, I look and I go, we don't want women to ever be singled out at work like, oh, she's in menopause. She's going to be in menopause 10 years. She's going to go through this. So that would be the worst thing for us. So I think the best thing for us is to be able to be educated, to be able to get the treatment we need, make sure insurance covers this. So women are not worried about how they're going to pay for things, whether it's their hormones or their visits or their doctors or whatever it is they're going to need to have during this time. And so that's what I'm advocating for constantly. But if you feel strongly enough, and I did, of walking in there and going like, here's what we need in our workplace to help us, there is nothing wrong with that. And if that means stepping out of a meeting because you're sweating and you can't, you're ready to rip your clothes off, or that means you need a fan at your desk, or that means that you're working with a company where you have a uniform and you need a different type of uniform, then I think you need to advocate for that or find somebody that will come in and help you do it. Because those are real things. Like, everyone's not working in a corner office. Everybody's not, able to work at home. So if you've got a woman that's working, in a factory or working with a uniform on, or forced every day to have long sleeves and walk around like the same thing a guy would wear, that, and she's sweating. Like, I can't even imagine what they're dealing with.
Wow.
So we've heard from so many women that have gone in there to do that. And so I get excited about, that's where I want to give women that, that power, those words.
And you are. And I didn't even think about that. Were you nervous going into that HR office, or were you at this point where you were?
I was nervous. Well, I was two things. I was nervous and I was so angry at the same time, not at work, but at like the whole situation for women, that I couldn't stop talking about it. Jamie, I would sit on the anchor desk while I'd be like reading up some of my stories. We'd go to a commercial break and I'd be working on now I'd moved over to Instagram. I got brave enough to go to Instagram to talk about it. I was very quickly got very bold. And I was like, I've got to do 2 more stories about vaginal estrogen or whatever it was, because I couldn't do it enough. I couldn't talk about it enough, and I couldn't answer questions enough that women were asking.
Yes. And, I think that's just such an example as well in what we were just talking about, where, and kind of how I've felt about my MS, where it's just like, I need to just say it out loud and call it out and say, this is what I'm dealing with, because I feel like, it takes the elephant out of the room. It takes out any awkwardness. If I'm showing that I'm accepting this is the situation, can we just move on? It just kind of allows everybody else to as well. Sometimes we don't realize how much in the driver's seat we can be, and we are. And I think giving women a voice like you do, and giving them the words and the information to be able to self-advocate and just be like, hey, I'm a little limited right now, or I'm feeling this right now, so I need this break. I think people would just feel more comfortable, but then also more confident that, like, okay, she can still fulfill her job. She just needs this support right now, instead of writing somebody off in this stage of life.
But don't you feel, I can't imagine the stories that you hear in the flood of your, in your inbox of women saying like, thank you for giving me the voice, the confidence to speak up. I'm sure you've gotten that way before the book, but I can't imagine what it's been like since.
Since the book, it's actually been really beautiful, because it's not necessarily women that live with MS or live with anything that I live with, but it's more of like, oh, she's just sharing her truth, and she looks confident, and she seems comfortable, and she seems happy. That's possible for me. And that's like, makes me feel better than any role I've ever done or anything. I mean, other than my children, like, to feel like, and also I was once them, where I could never imagine living any bit of my honest, real truth. I didn't even know who I was. I feel like my friend Rob said to me recently, because he read my book, like, I feel like you finally know who you are. And I said, you're right. I do. In my whole life, I never imagined that at 45 years old, I'd feel more confident and more in touch with who I am, despite having a disability and despite losing my hair and all of this stuff, because I'm just living out loud. And that could be one of the gifts possibly of this stage of life.
I think it is. Oh my gosh. I so think it is. And I think that, and when you said it's like a bigger gift than any role, I agree with you. I spent years trying to get to New York and years, like doing all these different things. Like, this is the job. This city is going to make me happy. This story is going to be it. Like, this is going to define my career, whatever it was. And it wasn't until I started, like, one woman after another coming up going like, oh, you saved my life. Or I never, I couldn't talk to my husband about this. And he thought that I was rejecting him and thinking that I didn't want to have sex with him because, I wasn't attracted to him anymore. Or, I couldn't fit into my clothes. I didn't even know what was going on with me. And I didn't feel like myself. You said at the beginning, don't feel like myself. And that's actually like something that's actually studied, that women go into a doctor's office like, I just don't feel like myself anymore. And that's what's happening, because there's such a transition happening during this time from perimenopause, perimenopause to menopause to post-menopause, which is kind of everything afterwards, where I just use menopause. But this is a huge transition in a woman's life that many didn't know about until we just got up on it, right? And losing hair and body shifting, weight shifting, just feeling different changes and not knowing what to do and not knowing who to talk to about it. So I can't wait to see what happens 5 years from now and see like knowing who we are and living our truth, what happens with that and the advances that are made. I'm just can't wait.
Yeah. And again, I think it's just like another one of those things that we could speak to of like what you can look forward to as you age and like on the other side of menopause and all of this type of stuff. So, your podcast is so wonderful because look, it's not, you're not talking about perimenopause and menopause. No. You are talking to leading experts and change makers when it comes to health and overall wellness. I've loved watching you do your closet clean out.
Thank you.
I know personally the like full energetic cleanse, and also just like it's very emotional and wonderful. Yeah. And like, what are other what are other things that you're covering that you're excited about it's so fun for you to take us on this journey with you, because I really think that you are paving a road again for women to look forward to.
Thank you so much. That closet clean out blew my mind. Like, I was literally just going to clean out the closet and I just put my phone up. But it was so emotional. Like, it was like, I found things in there. Like I found like this one particular like sweat jacket that my dad had bought for the first Christmas after my mom died. And I always get choked up about it because he like didn't know how to be a mom and a dad, Aww. And so he was like, I don't know, it's red and it's like something that was, and I kept it, like, it makes me cry. I kept it. It's been like 30 years, it's been forever. And that's been in my closet. And then I look back and there's like gowns or news dresses or different weights that I was, like all different sizes that I was, because I struggled with disordered eating for a very long time in my early 20s. And so I had every size. And even when the woman that came and brought a woman that was a stylist who came in, we call her like the feather hammer. She's really sweet. She's like, no, that has to go. You have to just get rid of that.
Feather hammer. That's such a great name.
She's so nice, but she's like, get rid of that, please. And so, but I have things from like very small size that I could never get in again, and things that are, from all different weight gain and weight loss. And it was really an emotional time. Yeah. So I do talk about that a lot on the podcast, but the podcast is really, for me, I feel like I want it to be for this next 30 plus years that we have. We have a lot of years. Women are living well into their 80s. So what are we doing? Like 45, 55? What are we doing with all these years? Because there's so many different acts, I feel like, that we're going to have as women. I don't think that it stops, in one area, which is what I thought for a long time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to 60, 65, and that'll be my career. That's not what's happened. Like, I have this whole different way of looking at, we say longevity a lot, but for me, it's really more of an emotional look at what happens in these years and what I want to do with it. And I call it being unfinished. Like, I feel very unfinished, and I have a lot more to do. And so I'm excited about it. And so I really I started out talking perimenopause, menopause, and we do a lot of doctors that come in and discuss that. But I wanted it to hit on everything. We did an episode recently about foot care and foot health, like how important it is, to take care of your feet and what that looks like. And then we talked about reinvention, and we talk about, the loss of a mother, because that's something that's really close to home for me. So there's just been a lot that I've tried to cover that kind of go a little bit deeper into the parts of areas that maybe we haven't talked about as openly yet. So I was so excited when you came and shared your book and your story, and I loved our conversation. I really did. And I just, I felt that in the audience, loved it, because you're right. It wasn't about MS. It was about speaking your truth and now knowing who you are. Yes. And that is incredible, an incredible place to be.
Thank you. And Tamsen, I'm so grateful for myself and other women that we have you to look to and to guide us and to excite us and to comfort us and to reassure us in this stage of life. It truly is such a gift. So please, other than the Tamsen show, your book, How to Menopause, how else can our listeners find you and support you?
Anywhere on social, Tamsen Fadal.
Amazing. So it's
a hard name, but it's the only one that,
It is not. I love it. I love your name. It's a strong name. It is like an individual. Yes, I love it. I've loved this conversation so much. I'm so grateful to you again for coming on. And before I let you go, I pull a card every episode and read a quote. So today's is, "You are not behind. You are not too late. Some of the most meaningful chapters are written after a woman stops trying to become someone else and starts coming home to herself." And so it is.
I love.
This show is executive produced by Christina Applegate, Jamie-Lynn Sigler, and Allison Bresnick. Our audio engineer is Josh Windisch.
If you want to show us some love, don't forget to leave the show a rating or review. Hi, it's Jamie. Thanks for listening. I just want to let you know I am a paid spokesperson for Novartis, but this podcast is independent from my collaboration with Novartis.